Abatsha Force of Change says not much has progressed under Basic Education Minister Angie Mothekga. Though they have been building new schools, that is not enough to improve the education system in the country. Joining us now is Nhongo from Abatsha Force of Change. Nhongo, I appreciate your time this afternoon. Now, a lot of matriculants are celebrating an average of 81% odd, much better than 2022, but you're not satisfied. You think a little bit more needs to be done.
No, definitely. Thanks to you, greetings to you and the listeners. A whole lot more has to be done, and it will require a lot of stakeholders to come on board and be radical about it and not try to actually rub shoulders with anyone. Because if you can combine all the matriculants today, those who have passed and those who did not pass, and you put them in a place where skill is needed, none of them will actually do much. But let's look at the statistics. The reality is that when we look at the matriculants who matriculated right now in 2022 versus those that have enrolled 12 years ago, the number has declined in terms of dropout. And you discover that about 300,000 of them are not part of those who are matriculating. So if you look at 80.1% as a pass mark, the real statistic will tell you that we have about plus minus 54% as a pass mark, which is a complete decline. And out of that, only about plus minus 70 of those learners have actually selected social stream instead of science stream. And that already speaks to the career versus the demand in our society. And it tells you already that in terms of the demand, career-wise, it's not being catered for. But also, it speaks of the mediocre when it comes to a 30% pass mark versus the APA scores that the universities are looking for. Most learners will not make it to universities. The space in varsity colleges is limited, but also the streams in terms of career path in colleges is also limited. But also you ask yourself, why are you spending 13 years at school and then you come out with nothing, no skill, no driver's license, nothing whatsoever? What these matriculants will be doing, as usual, they will be increasing an unemployment rate. As you have seen past years, youth unemployment rate has been increasing.
Well, Nhongo, talk to us about what should be. So you've given us an analysis on what is currently happening, and you've talked about radical change. So what should that radical change look like?
No, completely. The first thing that we must do as a society, we must depoliticize education. The president is allowed to appoint a minister outside parliament that doesn't even have to belong to a political party. A minister that understands that we need subjects that are relevant, that we need subjects that cater for technology as we are evolving in the world. A minister that will cater for the needs of the society and that of not for a political party. But secondly, we need a minister that will understand that we need to increase schools. We need to build schools with a conducive environment. You can't be increasing smaller classes, 4 classes or mobile classes when there's already overpopulation in schools. The level of overpopulation is crazy. We have exceeded the policy that says one teacher to 35 learners. Each school now in townships has about 65 learners in class. Of course, that increases even the risk of safety. It's speaking to the right of choice. It's speaking to the right of safety of learners. It's at risk. But also what is more important is that we also need to update to make sure that our schools are no longer outdated. Right now, as I'm speaking to you, some schools are issuing out textbooks that are outdated, dated 2004. And we need to evolve with technology. And we need to speak to that in terms of unemployment and crime rate when it comes to that. But we also need to make sure that we don't make school a routine or miseducation and a schooling system where we are just grading kids from one grade to another. And all they are doing is just to come in many routine hours. And they spend time there, not just Monday to Friday, but now up to Sunday. What happened to extracurriculums? What happened to sports as an activity, but also as a career? But moreover, what we need to do, we need to bring what we call integration. Already they have made an effort to bring ECDs into a basic department.
Well, Nhongo, you've said
schools must have one minister, and high schools together with one varsity must have a different minister, so that there is integration. High school results must speak to varsity entrance.
You've said Nhongo, sorry, you've said a fair amount, and I was hoping we'd actually have a conversation. Now, one of the things I'd like to ask is, how much of this is the fault of the Basic Education Department versus the actual government that is not supplying the necessary budget for basic education to build the schools that you speak of? And then you talked about practical learning. There are a number of specialized schools that we are aware of where kids are learning to do stuff with their hands. Does that not speak to some of these challenges that you speak of?
Exactly. So where's the link? Firstly, as a basic minister, you must understand your duty. Your duty is not to announce results. That's where the issue is. As a basic minister, you should be identifying problems and submitting them to the government. It should be our minister that says it makes sense to redirect our budget in this manner, and this is how you're going to be capping issues and problems, and this is how you'll be solving it. When you inject more money into the education system, we are actually saying you're going to produce more professionals, people who won't need RDP houses. Therefore, you'll be saving a certain amount of money from RDP houses. You're going to be producing people who are more skilled, whose talent, creativity, innovation has been considered. Therefore, they won't be frustrated in a school environment and drop out, and therefore become grant recipients, and therefore that will reduce. So when you spend much more money into education, which is a fundamental liberator, which is more like a seed, then you are closing gaps in so many ways. Because when a tree produces the fruits, a tree does not go around looking for market, but the market comes to the tree. And that's what the government is not understanding. But also it speaks to the government that says, are they not realizing that the Minister of Basic Education that we've been having for so many years is not so effective, that they need to reshuffle her? And not
Nhongo,
just
I'm afraid we're going to have to call time on the conversation. We've run out of time, but I certainly appreciate you making the time this afternoon. Nhongo Solo from the Abatsha Force of Change.